I can't wait for you to listen to this episode. For anyone who has struggled with being true to themselves and living a life that is authentic to them, this is a must listen. We dive deep. Monica will share some of her own experiences. She is such a beautiful storyteller and a generous soul. I think it will really help people to navigate some of the soup of one's own thoughts and journeys. She is also one of the bravest people I know. At one point, she shares a beautiful story of home. You will not want to miss a single word. Welcome, everyone, to the Miles to Zen podcast. I am so excited today to have our wonderful guest, Monica, join us from Life Lift Coaching. Hello, Monica. Welcome.
Hi, Shannon. I'm also excited. Thank you for having me here.
Monica is a certified hypnotherapist, an RTT therapist, a therapeutic life coach, a RTC coach, which you'll have to explain to us later, certified yoga coach, a certified meditation teacher, and also an adventurer, a lover of island living. She's lived on 3 islands that I know of, a mom, a wife, and one of my dear friends, and someone who has regularly showed up in life with a huge heart and a ton of courage. So welcome, Monica. So excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So why don't we go back to our beginning? So we met, when was it? 2022, 2021?
I think 21. I'm not sure. 22. I don't know even this. I lost track of time.
I know, me too. And if you can imagine, so my family and I, we were on vacation in Mexico and we were staying at this marina on Isla Mujeres. And we spotted this kid at the pool and thought this guy is going to be perfect for a companion for my son to hang out with. And we eventually met and started chatting with Monica and got told the story that 3 weeks before, she had sailed across the Atlantic in a small catamaran with her 9-year-old at the time, her French bulldog, and her husband. And I thought that was just so amazing. And yet, as we talked more and just had a wonderful time hanging out together, there were so many more layers to you and to that story. And maybe you could tell us about what got you to that point of sailing across the Atlantic. And I would love for people to hear your journey of a little bit about where you were before, because when we met, you'd already had so many adventures and such a rich, deep life of following your heart. And this culminating in this sailing trip across the Atlantic, which we can move our conversation to where you went after that.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, I love to think back at the time when we met. And I do not believe in coincidences. So it was beautiful match. We were just there and became good friends. Yes, we arrived, my family and I, in Mexico, Isla Mujeres, after sailing across the Atlantic. So we left Spain and crossed over to the Caribbean and then came to Mexico. And that was quite an adventure. How did we get there? Well, it was not our first adventure. So we are all, my husband and my son is also born there. We are all Austrians, which is an irony then landing in the Atlantic because we have no ocean there. Anyway, we left Austria many years ago when Tim was 3 years old and now he's almost 12. So kind of an adventure because it was just too tight for us. And I was not the driving force there, to be honest, but what I was also curious. I'm the most curious person you can imagine. And I very early learned that whatever I do, I want to be open. I want to embrace whatever comes. I want to be open. I want to explore. And then we went from Austria. First, we thought we would start in Thailand, but it didn't work out. So we went to LA and stayed with friends there. And from there, because we couldn't stay there, we went to Dubai. And then we lived 2 years in Dubai, which was an amazing experience. But I didn't want my son to grow up there for several reasons, but also because the nature was missing. But also a lot of other things which I do not agree with how the society works there. So from there we went to Spain, our first time Spain. When we were there on Mallorca at the island, my husband had a business with a partner in Montenegro. So we went to Montenegro. And from Montenegro, then COVID started and we wanted to be with our families. So we went back to Austria for a certain time. Then it was not a good place to be there in the middle of the heat of COVID time. So we went back to the island, to Mallorca. But also there, things got a bit complicated, let's say. And so my husband said, okay, we cannot stay there. And I was like, no, not again, I'm moving. So we had to find somehow a possibility to move on. But also my search is always like to feel home. I want to be home. I want to be, be there somehow by coincidence. Actually, at that time, I was working as a yoga teacher and I made these retreats and I had someone helping me preparing this and making this, and she was a captain. And I was just asking her because my husband was talking about Mexico, and I was like, how long does it take from here to Mexico with a boat? And then she said, well, you have to go this direction and you do this and that, and it will take such and so long. And I was like, oh, wow, that's actually doable. And we were just playing around. And somehow, I don't know, one thing happened after the other. Somehow we then bought the boat. We had no idea about sailing, but it just came up. And I was like, that's a good idea because I can have my home and still we can move around and do not have to know where we are. And there we were. Suddenly I woke up on the boat living there, crossing the Atlantic.
That's hilarious. Some people buy a motorhome, but you guys bought a catamaran and set sail.
Yeah, so and that's and yeah, so it was a long journey. It was a very intense journey and with so many beautiful lessons, and I would not miss it. But I'm also okay. I don't have to do it also now again. But it was beautiful, and
Yeah.
then we were there, Isla Mujeres,
I think
and
that's wisdom
met.
right there. You've experienced it. You don't need to do it again. And you wouldn't trade it for the world. But
Exactly.
yeah, I've had
Yeah.
many travel moments like that where some of my best trips, would I necessarily do them again? Perhaps not, but they're still really treasured trips, and I came out alive.
Yeah. No, it was amazing. It was full packed of lessons and deep experiences. And at that time, I was working already a lot self-development, self-discovering, and also going out and sharing this with people. And as I said, at that time, I was a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and still I think I was always on the search for what helps me
Yeah,
to become more me, to go back to my authenticity, which I have unlearned at school, society, trying to fit in. So this was not only a journey around the world, it was also a journey to myself,
right.
which is still going on, of course.
Yeah. In fact, I've had a word of the year for the last few years. And last year, my word of the year was authentic. And, it is used a lot, but it's so important, especially for those of us who have people pleasing tendencies, who are following a path that has got some shoulds in it. And having that idea of coming back to that word of authentic helped me make some decisions. Is this authentic for me? Is this in line with my authentic self? And it made decisions easier because
Mhm.
you get a clear answer when you do that. So, about your journey to that, to your authentic self, how did things kick off? Like, I'm thinking for, for people who may be listening who are realizing, okay, I've been living this life that's maybe not aligned with what I want, or maybe, my life was aligned before, but it's no longer aligned to what I want. How did that change start happening for you? How did you go from the Monica you were to the Monica who then became a yoga teacher and got interested in meditation and things like that?
Yeah, as I said, I was always seeking for feeling better, for becoming better, like we all. I mean, I have to say, I was always, since a child, fascinated in observing people and thinking about things maybe children normally don't do. This is what my husband tells me: "You are a weird kid. How can you talk? How can you think about that?" But what I mean by that is, like, I remember thinking about different perspectives. For example, if I see something, that's only my perspective, and no one will exactly ever know how I see it, because even the language, how can I know that they understand what I mean? So I was thinking about these things, what I want to say about it. I was always fascinated in that, and I was always like maybe more intuitive than some other people, or I felt it more, let's say this. However, this got lost when I got pushed into some roles. When I came to school, had to follow a certain thing. Also, in our home, I have super lovely parents, but my father was struggling with depression. My mom was overwhelmed with 4 kids, and I took on the role subconsciously, obviously, as the perfect child. Everything was good. I did everything alone. And no one had to care about me. I didn't want to make any problems. I became the people pleaser. I became everything which I thought would make someone love me. So
Mm,
this was the thing which pulled me away from my authentic self. And then teenage years came. Now it's not about being the best anymore. This doesn't count with your peers. This doesn't impress the boys. So you have to become something else. Now you have to become beautiful. I definitely was not. So I had to find my way there also. And that was the time where I suffered, I think, most in my early teenage years. I was so desperate for approval and for seeking love that I did whatever I thought would make them love me. And
yeah.
that was dangerous. And I made so many stupid things that now I'm so happy when I can show young people what I did and they don't have to do it. So I can open their eyes. They don't have to go through that. Don't do it. You don't have to experience it yourself anyway. So what happened then, I got totally into this people pleasing, into I do whatever you want, just tell me. Somehow, there's a point in my life, I woke up with a diagnosis of an autoimmune disease with Hashimoto's. And the doctor said to me, "Why are you so stressed?" And I said, "I'm not stressed. What you're talking about?" And I see in your blood that your cortisol levels are so high. And I was like, "I'm not stressed." Well, what I didn't know back then, that I was stressed, but I was so used to it because
Yeah.
I always had to, make everything perfect and make everyone love me and have to do it, all this and that I forgot myself. So this was my wake-up call. And at the same time, I found a yoga teacher. We lived in Dubai at that time, and I started yoga. And I was like, why? Actually, this is, I don't know if I like that, but somehow it brought me to it, or it came to me, and I just started to feel my body, and I was suddenly amazed. Oh my God, wow, there is something. And I could feel better immediately. And my thyroid conditions got better. And I was like, how is this possible? And the explanation was, first of all, and the most, I mean, this is the reason number one, I took out the stress. I changed my lifestyle. I started to eat a healthier diet. And all together, all because I became aware of my body, like feeling it again. So this was my first step. And I was so amazed by it. I was like, oh my God, everyone has to know that. Everyone has to know what yoga can do and how we can do that. And so this was my wake-up call of, I don't know whose life am I living actually. I don't know what am I doing in this country even. I don't know why am I working here in a company which I don't even know what to do. So this was not the start, I would say, for self-development, but this was a change. At that moment, I was seeking somehow like a channel of how can I share my experiences? How can I make other people become aware they can do something else than taking a pill and medication, which is good, which has a place, yes, but how can we heal in a deeper level? And that was my first start, yoga. And this is how I became more and more curious, because I saw more and more how I came back to myself, peeled away one layer after the other, what was on me, sitting on me from all this playing, from all these roles, from all the things I tried to be, which I was not.
Yeah, that whole getting in touch with your body. I mean, I've heard it more and more coming up in the last year of, almost the way that, Deepak Chopra, it talks about us being the observer of our minds, but also when we can become the observer of our bodies and realize that we've been, as a collective, quite hard on our bodies and not realizing how poorly we treat our bodies. And when we can kind of do that perspective of being outside and being the observer of our body, like yoga allowed you to do, you get such interesting perspective. And especially for so many women, that society feeds us, especially as teenagers, a lot of super unhealthy messages.
Yes.
And you begin a very self-destructive relationship with your body. And it takes years to unravel. And I'm feeling only even in the last year have I made true progress on that front of just being much kinder to myself and being aware, being that observer of how you're talking to yourself, even in the mirror. And that connection with your body is so, so important. And I'm still learning that. It's taking me a while. But
Yeah, well, we all do. And when I started yoga also, it was not that suddenly I was kind and compassionate with myself. So no, I forced myself into any yoga pose that led to injuries. And because that was my program, that was how I was operating. That's what I learned since I was a little child. Yes, I did yoga, and that was good because I moved my body. I did certain poses. I took out the stress, but I still made it in a not so healthy way. But this
yeah,
also this evolved. I met
yeah.
then we moved to Spain. I met other yoga teachers. Someone suddenly who came more from the spiritual side, and also, well, yoga is a world. It's a world, and there's so many different ways and directions and schools and theories and everything. So what I found then is like suddenly I got introduced to another side, which is also the meditation, which is the compassionate way. It does not care how it looks like. Just get out of that. And for me, this was so, so hard, like doing restorative yoga, where you are in certain shapes, poses, without moving. Oh my God, that was the most challenging. I could do, I don't know how many rounds of sun salutations, insane, because I pushed myself. But being still, that was my challenge. But I knew also, because I started with meditation, I was so curious again. And somehow I felt this is my way. I have to slow down. I have to go there. So there this opened another door. And then I was so hooked with the whole thing that I became a yoga teacher. And then I wanted to share all this experience with the world. And I made retreats in Spain, which was lovely. And that was another step, like tapping in the world of meditation, going into the not the fancy poses and not the fancy vinyasa flow, but what yoga for me also really is. And this was when we met also in Mexico. That was after this yoga experience. And funnily enough, then in Mexico, from Isla Mujeres, we moved to Cozumel, another island, where I met someone and we opened a yoga studio. Because I was thinking like, well, isn't that a dream for every yoga teacher? You want to have a yoga studio, that's amazing, you do that. And I
At the
did.
beach.
It was not exactly at the beach, but Cozumel is so small that...
Exactly. The whole island's a beach.
Yeah, but anyway, so now coming back to the journey of myself, I was doing that and we were in the process and we rented it, we decorated it, we started our classes. And I suddenly realized that her understanding from teaching yoga is different to mine. I was always at that point, I was wanted to share people the healing part. I was in my retreats, I was coaching people already. It was more like giving them why do you do that? It's not about the pose, it's what you learn while you're doing it. It's not about doing this or that. Understand why. Go into the chakra system, learn about where is the disbalance, see how you can unblock the blocks and all this stuff. And for her, it was also a spiritual side, but more the physical part. Anyway, it was like going there, do your class, go home, and that's it. And for me, I suddenly felt like, okay, we just started that, we rented this, but this feels so wrong. But what am I doing else? And I had no idea, but I just knew it's wrong. And I didn't listen to my intuition. I tried to push through and it ended not good. So I should have said right when I felt it, listen, I feel that's not for me. It can be, I don't know, we have to find a solution, but I didn't. So I tried to push and then it ended in not such a nice way. And so she felt that I was not so engaged and I wanted to make me, but I didn't, and found excuses. At the end, I tried to help her. I said, okay, I will help you to get this running, but I'm out. But I wished I would have said it earlier and clearer. Yeah, and anyway, then I was still working. I was like, what's wrong with you? I mean, come on. Nothing was wrong with me. Nothing. And that's the thing what I did, what the mistake I made, and so many people do when they do the self-development work, looking for what's wrong with them. Now that's the thing, nothing is wrong. Nothing was wrong with me, except my belief system that there is something wrong. And talking about that, I got introduced to hypnotherapy and therapeutic coaching. And again, I was like, wow, that's interesting, because working with that, let's see what it opens up within me. And there I found out, well, why did I sabotage myself all the time? Why did I feel so stuck and didn't know where is my passion, where is my heart? Well, because I was run by these subconscious programs, by these subconscious blocks, by this feeling I'm not good enough, therefore I have to be what I think will make others love me. And once I removed them layer by layer, I was free and I could really do and listen even more to my heart and share this passion. Like my passion is to help people also to find their true self, to tap into their potential and their authentic true being in order to shine into the world. So I got these new tools in my toolbox, which was hypnotherapy, rapid transformational coaching, which is a combination between NLP and hypnotherapy, and therapeutic coaching. And that was it. And bringing away these layers, something interesting happened. I suddenly realized all I ever wanted to do was coaching, but I never ever dared to dream that or to allow myself to think about it even, because who am I that I can coach other people that don't have everything sorted out? It's just like, no, come on, that's ridiculous. But thinking that who am I to not do it when I want it so badly, that's ridiculous. And I do not listen to my heart. So yeah.
I love that. It's just such a wonderful example of heartfelt decision making. and just in alignment with who you are rather than who you think you should be.
Oh, yes, yes. And that's a journey to even discover that you are acting through this program who you think you should be. Because I didn't know for many years that I was operating through this program. I thought I would do what I loved. I thought I would do what I like. But something always felt a little bit heavy and a little bit like, not right. I mean, not talking about the time in Dubai when I was totally away from my true self, but also then as a yoga teacher, it was a step towards it, but it was always a almost. You're
Yeah.
almost there. You're almost
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a funny thing. What comes to my mind is since I'm a child, and now there's the irony that we were traveling around the world. Since I'm a child, I had this dream that I go home to my parents' home where I lived there, but I cannot find home. I go there, and no matter in which room I go, I can't find home. And I go to the street, I open the door, and there is no home. And I had this dream since I'm a child over and over and over again.
Wow.
Now, in Mexico, at the time when I started to coach, when I started to do what I'm doing now, the first moment when I was still in the training, but I had already my first clients, I was in a point in Mexico where I knew I don't want to be there anymore. It's not my place. I want to go back. I want to go back to a place where I feel more home. At that time, one night, I fell asleep and I woke up. I had this dream. I go to my parents' street. I go to the house. I go there and I feel home. For the first time in my life, I felt home. And I woke up and I was like, what's that? I'm in Mexico. I do not feel at home at all. How can I feel home? And I was just like, okay, don't think about it. Just go within and don't try to find an answer. Just let it come up. And there it came. Home is not a place. Home is within you. Home is when you are
Right.
aligned with your purpose and you do what you love, what you're meant for. And that was a bam, such an aha moment.
That's hilarious because I had this exact conversation just yesterday with this woman, this really wonderful human, talking about how she was a homebody, but now she was moving all around and quite comfortable. And it was exactly that. I'm like, it's because you found home with yourself. And so that even with her business, she established a sense of home with herself. And it was just that thought just came out of the blue. But I realized when I was talking to her that she had that feeling of home within. And that's such a magical epiphany to have, and something that I wish my mom had had. My mom, she moved around so much as a kid, and then her and my dad lived on the farm where I grew up, and they lived there for 50 plus years. But my mom never had that feeling of home within her. And what a gift that is that you give to yourself. And it's something that I think all of us can explore a little bit more, but that's amazing. So then this is like a fun story of where did you go from there?
Well, from Mexico or from both.
From,
Like
yeah,
it was
from the
always combined
yeah, well,
to
the home, that feeling of home and that work that you were doing in Mexico and the dream and what happened.
so I felt this peace and this really deep inner peace like I've never found, which is the feeling of home, this feeling of safety, this feeling of love, this feeling of peace. Not in the place where I lived. I definitely didn't feel home there, but in myself by doing what I'm meant to do here. By just like helping people also to get away these filters, to get away these programs, to peel away all these layers and backpacks of stone we think we have to do, and to find and align with their purpose, and then also to spread it into the world. Because this was always my journey also. Then I was a yoga teacher. From that time I started to have my own businesses. But it somehow never worked because I always self-sabotaged. Because I felt unworthy, I felt I'm not good enough in many different ways. And that was also always the underlying thing. And when I peeled away these layers, and it led me to my passion, it led me to be a coach like I am now, it led me to work on to develop methods how to help others and myself also. First myself, then others. And this was a changing point in my life. And the inside also always mirrors the outside. So at that point, we shortly after left Mexico, and first we went back to Austria and then again back to Spain.
By plane
where,
this time.
where we use okay, and where we really feel home at the moment. Will it be forever? I don't know, but it's not so important anymore. It's not that I think I have to hold on anything and every stuff I have around. It's just it's not so important because I know what I do. This is home. Well, who am I? Every day I show up like living aligned in my purpose. Every day I show up and I really check in, is this aligned with who I really am, with my authenticity? And then I can share from my intuition and from my heart. And yeah, and I'm very happy now because I can see this now in my clients when they come to me. And it's not that people come to me always because they don't know what their purpose are, or because they have their purpose and they don't know how to share. There are a lot of people who come, a lot of healers and coaches who are held back by subconscious blocks, and I help them to bring them on the surface and to get rid of them, and then also to make it work, that they can go out and play big, because this is also what held me back all the time. This like playing small. Who am I to be a coach? Who am I to make it in a, and to play big? And now I help people to do the same. Like, okay, forget about this playing small. Who are you? Do not play big.
Right,
like Marianne Williamson
right.
also says
Yeah.
it in Return to Love. This is from A Course in Miracles, where who are you to not play big?
Yeah.
I mean, this is so selfish. And seeing that now in clients, when they then have their successes, when they bring their passion, their healing work, their gifts, whatever it is, to a broad audience, that's so rewarding. And not only, like, as I said, not only people come to me because they want to, bring their healing business or whatsoever to the next level and want to get rid of their blocks. Sometimes people come to me because they are just unhappy, or they deal with anxiety. They are depressed. I recently had, like, it's already almost 3 months ago, a client come to me, and he was in a really, really, really dark place, like super depressed. And he said, well, this is my last thing. I don't know what to do. And really, it was really alerting in the state of mind. Like, he hated himself so much. He felt only disgust for himself. And we looked at that. And I didn't know at the moment, of course, what exactly strategy or method I do. But because of I didn't know, that made it so successful. I just allowed to just feel into him. Like, and I say to him also, okay, at the moment you can't like yourself. That's okay. That's how it is. And from there we go. And I work very intuitively. I also have a lot of powerful tools in my toolkit, but I work very intuitively. I tune into the people and then I see where it goes. I have no idea because it doesn't come from me. It feel like it comes through me. However, this client, I had a conversation last week, and he said, well, I can't say that life is now, everything is amazing. But despite of all the challenges that come up, I feel so happy And I'm so excited about that. And I'm in such a good place that I'm so grateful even for every challenge that comes up to me. And this is so rewarding. And then I feel like, wow, that's such a gift that I can work with people and see their transformation. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. And it's not, by the
Yeah.
way, because I did such a great work. It's just because he was willing to do the work. I was like, I could connect with him. I also allowed my intuition. I listened to my heart. First of all, can I work with this person? Are we a good match? And then secondly, I was okay, what can help him as the next step? What can help him now? And so he came out of that. He put away this filter of everything is dark, the world is a cruel place, all peoples are just like betray everyone. And he focuses now on what's good and what's beautiful. And yeah, and that's amazing. And I didn't change the life for him. I didn't change the world, but I helped him that he shifts the focus from the darkness to the light.
You helped him change the perspective. And
Exactly.
and it's like what Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, which
I
is one of my
love
favorite
it.
quotes.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And this is the thing, yeah.
had he tried traditional therapy before?
Yes, he did traditional talk therapy and some things before, and it didn't help. And the difference to that, which has also place, and it's also good for some things, and the difference between traditional talk therapy and psychotherapy and what I do is, in most traditional talk therapies, they talk about the problem over and over and over again. And they go into the past and they stay in the past and they always, it's like opening the wound over and over and over and over again. And what I do is, yes, I can look into the past. I go to the root cause. I see, okay, when did you come up with this idea that you hate yourself, for example? And then some memories come up from childhood, and then we go through them. And feelings come up which have to be felt. I work also with the body, like with a somatic approach. Very grateful for my meditation and yoga experience also, because I can always interweave it. And then when we have looked at the root cause, when we have investigated where it come from, when we interpret it, why did you connect this? Why did you make this program? Then we interrupt this. And then we somehow install or change these limiting, harmful beliefs of I'm awful, I'm just disgusting, into something positive. And so this is the deep work. And then we continue with, okay, how does it work now? Once I don't have these limiting beliefs anymore, well, now I know the root cause. How do I walk with these new shoes? So then we see, okay, what can you do now? What can you do now? How can you shift your focus? And that's really important to understand, because especially in spiritual world, there is often something which is like a toxic positivity, where you avoid. But in my experience, it doesn't work like that. We have to accept what's there. And sometimes we feel sad, and sometimes we feel anger, and sometimes we feel jealousy, and sometimes we feel these dark emotions, if you like. And that's okay. So we have to allow them. We have to take them as a teacher and ask them, okay, what are you teaching me? And then taking these lessons and apply them and say, okay, I see you are here, but I choose. Then you can reframe. Then you can see, okay, I allow myself to be sad. I allow myself to be angry, whatever it is. And then this energy transforms when you allow it. So this is the somatic work, the emotional work, and also like the subconscious work, which I did before. And then we go and work also with the conscious mind, as I say. Like, it's a very multidimensional and holistic approach that I do with my clients, and with that client especially. I couldn't do in the first session when we see each other, a deep hypnosis session, because this would have been too much for him. I have to listen to my intuition, like to tap into, to allow him to feel that feeling, to see that's okay. Because what happens with people with anxiety, or when we have super depressed, is like anxiety is special. We're afraid of the fear, and it traps us even more in the fear. So this is a loop down. If I now go there and make a deep work, and a lot of heavy things come up, that's too much. So I tailor it to every unique person which is in front of me. I have to see, okay, where can I go there? Where can I go there? And then to balance it out somehow, to really listen to my intuition, to really listen to them, what they need. And yeah, so this is how it works. And for me, this is the most beautiful thing one can do. And seeing then these people from super depressed or super anxious to being liberated to somehow enjoying life again. And there is another funny story which came up. I was working with a client. She came to me for anxiety. She was like, "Oh my God, I have anxiety. I don't know." And she was very stressed. She has her own business also in the beauty industry, quite successful. And we were working on the anxiety and reduced it at the beginning, and now she's free. But how I learned from that is, so we had a couple of coaching sessions and also deep hypnosis work, subconscious work, with the somatic work and everything. And then she already said, "Wow, I feel so much better. I don't have anxiety anymore." And then a month later or something, she called me. She said, "Monica, I think we need to meet again because maybe my anxiety is back." And I was like, "Oh, really? Okay, no problem. Yeah, let's meet." And then we met, and then she said, I have this funny feeling. It's in my stomach. And I don't know why, because I mean, now I changed my lifestyle. I'm not so stressed anymore. I do what makes me happy and all that stuff. But this feeling and I was listening to her, and then I asked questions. And I let her describe this feeling and all that. It turned out that this funny feeling, which she didn't know what it was the feeling of excitement, of happiness, of like, wow, everything is okay. But she was so not used to that she didn't know where to put it, in which box to put it, because there was no box for this happiness feeling in her life, because it didn't have place for that.
And I've heard Mel Robbins as well describe anxiety, that the feeling of anxiety is almost identical to the feeling of excitement. The feeling is very close. So before she went on stage, she would change her perspective and say, "I'm not anxious, I'm excited. I'm really excited." And no wonder she was thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is back."
Exactly. I love that you brought this up, because the sensation in the body, it's the same. It's the same sensation. It's these butterflies in the stomach, and it's exactly how this client described it to me. But of course, at the beginning, she didn't say, "Yeah, there's butterflies in my stomach." She said, "There's this feeling in my stomach always. It's like a nervous feeling." But then she described it. "Yeah, there's again this feeling, but it's like a butterfly feeling, but it's again this feeling." And then I said exactly the same. I said, physically, it's the same sensation.
That's what I would when I was freaking out about giving a conference presentation or something, I would just repeat that mantra in my head. I'm really excited. I'm not anxious. I'm really excited. I'm not terrified to be up here on this stage in front of all these people. I'm really excited. And I was able to do some moderate work, but it would have been handy to have you in the background there to be like, okay. Let's get to the bottom of this quick.
And there's the thing, because I'm trained in a method which is called rapid transformational therapy, because you said quick, that was my ear prick up moment, and rapid transformational coaching. So there's the word rapid within. Now, this method was invented by or brought together by Marissa Peer, a British therapist, and she combined elements of hypnotherapy, NLP, cognitive behavior therapy, and some other elements of psychotherapy. And she made this method, which includes hypnosis. Now, when people come to me, sometimes they say, "Okay, I want to have this. I want to have this quick fix." And then I say, "Oh, no." I mean, yes, the inside, it can happen that it changes everything like that, but you have to think about like having these harmful thoughts for decades within yourself, like having these harmful programs within yourself. And yes, the program we can interrupt immediately. But what happens then is you have to learn how to do it. So I always say, like, the deep work, the hypnosis work is like the surgery. And then comes the physio. You have to strengthen these muscles. You have to learn to walk again. And also what can happen when we peel off a layer, a program, can happen that something else comes up and then something else. So yes, this is a powerful method, which I love to use when it's appropriate. But healing is not a quick fix. Healing is a process.
Mhm.
And it's also not a funny process. It's not something where you're at peace and yeah, afterwards, yes. But going through healing is painful. And it's no matter if you heal from grief, sadness, anxiety, depression, your self-sabotaging behaviors, whatever it is, it's always a process. And it's not a quick fix. But yes, compared to traditional psychotherapy, talk therapy, where they go for decades to the therapy and talk about the same problem over and over again, you can see it as a quick fix compared to
So, so I have a question. So, how would you approach, say, you're working through the layers, and there's a tendency, I think, and certainly I've fallen into this, of just being a continuous make work project. You're continuously doing self-improvement. Is there a point where you can just stay in that mode for too long? I've got another thing to fix. Oh, here comes another thing. I've got another thing. I've got another thing. And this never ending cycle of fixing yourself as opposed to being in your highest expression of self. Where do you land on that? Like, at what point does fixing yourself become too much?
yeah, that's an amazing question, because especially in a field where a lot of people do, like in the self-development bubble, and when I work with coaches and healers and all that stuff, it's very easy to get trapped into this trap.
Yeah.
I can do once I've got rid from all my harmful beliefs and all my layers that hold me back and all this self-sabotage. Once I'm totally healed, then I can do X, Y, Z. Then I can go out and share my message. And no, that doesn't work like that. This is always a work in progress. It's just like you evolve, and also it's not linear. It's not step one, step two, step three, and so on. It's just like it's a process, and it's almost like a flower. It's like blossoming, and it's not first is one and then the other and then the other. It's just like it somehow arises, and I think we are never finished with that work. But I think the more you work on yourself, the more you have these moments and longer moments of peace when you listen to yourself. And now there it comes. Working on yourself doesn't mean always to go from one therapy to the other, to do one thing and to work all the time, and then you have to peel away that, and then you have to do working on yourself is doing nothing. It's just like being there in stillness and just allowing that. Just nurturing yourself, doing what you love, doing what's your purpose, what's your passion. This is also self-work. And so on the one side, there is this, we are never ready, and we should not wait until we are ready. While we are going, while we are doing, we will heal. Because only in the movement we can peel away the layers. If I would have waited until all my layers, all my programs would have been away, and I would feel totally at peace, and I would have never started to do what I love. And there is a lot of work still to do. So, and while I'm going, I always get more and more opportunities to look at, to look inside, to, oh, it's interesting what comes up. I wonder where this comes from. And then I And then I work on that. And it's not like, oh my God, again, I have to work on that. It's just like
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
like a gift. Oh, wow, amazing. Something else wants to come up. Let's see what it brings. And there's
Right.
always, on the other side, there are people who maybe do not enough of the self-development work. So there's the other side, the other extreme. So the one extreme is the healer or the coach who cannot share their passion because they think they are not ready because they still have some roadblocks or whatever they have. And on the other side is someone who always tries to do something outside to get one job and then the other and to get this and that and money and car and whatsoever. And they miss out to look inside. So this also doesn't lead to this feeling of happiness or this freedom, what we all at the end look for. Everyone looks for happiness, no matter if they call it a perfect partner or they want to have a child or they want to be in a home or whatever it is. We all look for happiness, that's it. And that always requires looking inside because guess what? Where the happiness is, it's not outside, it's inside only. So there has to be.
That reminds me of a story. I was working in Bordeaux in France, and the company that I worked for in Vancouver, we had an office there. And on one of my flights, I was sitting beside this guy, and his job was to deliver luxury yachts to very, very wealthy people. And he said that it was really interesting to watch the people who got the yachts because they were buying these yachts thinking this is what's going to make me really happy. And they were really happy when they got the yacht. And then he says, I would observe this moment where their face would change a little. And they had the realization that I thought it would make me happier. And it's exactly what you're talking about, right? Happiness is an inside job first. Yachts and beautiful things can certainly add some happiness into your life. However, it's not going to be very sustained if you don't have that inside first.
Exactly, yeah. And the same, it's not only, what also comes to my mind now is like on the opposite of doing maybe too much self-work before you go out because you think you're never ready. There's on the one side these people who seek for the external happiness, like these yachts and stuff, but also when people are super depressed or when they're anxious and they are working only on the symptom. When they feel anxious and they take something that makes them calmer, well, great, now you are calmer. But you always have to take this because to work on the symptom, and you have to take more, obviously, more and more. You have to, adjust, but you're not working on the root cause. So you have to look inside for healing, no matter what it is, because what you feel, what we see, and it doesn't matter if it's an autoimmune disease like it was in my case, or if it's anxiety or depression, are all just symptoms. But the healing lies inside, the root cause is inside. So there we have to also look inside. Now, can you only heal once you have dealt with all your problems and traumas? Of course not. But again, here it's a process. While you go, while you do the things you need to do, you look inside and you heal and you put away one layer after the other. And in my case also with the autoimmune disease, I was so stressed. I was not living my life. And by coming back to myself, my true authentic self, yes, my body also could heal. Because I came back. I stopped neglecting my body. I stopped being cruel to myself. And my body was just playing with it. It was like, okay, I do the same. I also help you punish yourself. And
Yeah.
now I found the other way, the other side, going through the healing, being compassionate, doing what I love. Yes, my body could also heal and come back to the natural state, which is being healthy.
Well, and that seems like a really good spot for us to wrap up on that note, because that's, ultimately what I think we all want, is to be healthy and happy and be in alignment with what we truly want. And so just before we sign off, are there any other things that you would like to share with our listeners? And if you had any additional or summarizing pieces of wisdom or piece of wisdom you'd like to share?
Wow, yeah, there is so much, but I mean, essential. I think the essence of what we talk today is about really listening to your heart. How can you listen to your heart? Not when you hustle, not when you are busy, not when you run from one to the other. You need pause. And I know maybe you're a busy mom and you have a job and you have to do this and that and you go to bed at 11. Okay. But there is always a time in between where you can stop for a minute or for 5 minutes and just take your time. And then also, nothing has to be perfect. So give yourself the time, pause, and look inside. How do you feel? And this is where you tap into your inner guidance, which will lead you to your passion, that will lead you to your purpose, which will lead you to your happiness. Not in outside, but inside. When you then say, yes, but I have to do so many things, don't have time for that. The other way around, you don't have time, do not listen to that. That's it. And yeah, it's just, and it needs a little bit practice. Start with 5 minutes a day. Okay, listen, okay, how do I feel actually? And then extend it. You don't have to do an hour meditation every day. Just tap in and see who is running the show now. Is it me? Is it fear? Oh, yeah. And sometimes it's really good to have someone mirroring that. And this can be your best friend or your partner, whoever you feel comfortable with, to really talk about that. Give yourself the time and then express it, whatever comes up. And trust it. Do whatever is there, what says this voice within you. Fear will come in between and try to give you excuses for why you don't do it. But don't listen to that. Listen to your intuition, and we know that voice, this subtle voice, which is not so loud like the fear, but it's more subtle and compassionate and gentle. But the more you have the time to tap within, the more you will be able to listen to that, and the more you listen to that, the more you get used to it, and then it becomes your inner compass.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, that inner voice, the one you should listen to, is the gentle, compassionate, kind voice. If there's the voice that's fear, not being so nice, being judgy, that's the ego. So
Yes.
making sure.
That's why we have to be still, quiet.
That's great. Thank you so much, Monica, for taking the time to come on our podcast today. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping that everyone finds this conversation really helpful, and you can apply it in your own lives to help you show up better for your family, your friends, your kids, your pets, but ultimately for yourself, because no one's going to do it for you. So thank you so much again. And I look forward to talking to you really soon.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I can't wait.
Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to contact Monica, please see the show notes for her details. And if you got something out of this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe to Miles to Zen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, so you are notified about new episodes. Please take the time to leave a review, especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts. This will help more people access these inspiring and perspective-shifting stories from our guests. I am so delighted to be reading your beautiful comments on my various platforms, and see you next time.